The steady click of the front door latch used to be my nightly comfort. Now, it was a prelude to betrayal. I lay still, back turned toward the doorway, fists clenched beneath the covers, pretending to sleep. The faint trace of a cologne I didn't recognize, sandalwood with a sharp, citrus edge, drifted into the room. It was more than a scent, it was a confession. I heard her careful steps across the hardwood, the soft groan of a familiar floorboard, each sound a knife twisting into the memory of what we once had. The signs had been building slowly, averted eyes, distracted smiles, her phone always in hand. I'd told myself it was the stress of her job in marketing. But the unease in my gut never left. Then came the night she stayed late, the hollow excuses, the murmured phone calls she thought I couldn't hear. Tonight followed the same pattern. The gentle thud of her heels on the floor, the quiet rustle of fabric as she slipped out of her dress, the sigh as she settled into bed beside me. I waited until her breathing steadied. "How is this place?" I asked into the darkness, my voice a dry whisper. She went rigid. A sharp inhale. Slowly, she turned toward me, the faint streetlight slicing through the blinds casting pale light over her face. Her eyes were wide, drained of color. "David." She began, her voice almost inaudible. The name struck like a blow. David, the co-worker she was always working late with. Everything locked into place, the picture complete and foul. "Don't," I said, my tone flat, stripped of anger, pain, or pleading. "Don't insult me with lies." Her tears came quickly, words spilling out in a frantic mix of apologies and explanations. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head so many times that her performance felt scripted. I let her speak, her voice washing over me without effect. The hurt was too deep for rage. What I felt now was something sharper, colder, a resolve. By morning, I wore the mask of normalcy. I made breakfast, kissed her goodbye, went to work. But while she sat in her meetings, I was setting my plan in motion. I called a private investigator, an old friend's connection, and told him everything. He worked quickly, and within a week I had what I needed: photographs, videos, timestamps, text messages. Proof. It was more than enough to destroy her, but Clara wasn't my only target. David had known about me. He'd seen our wedding photos on her desk, the ring on her finger. And still, he'd gone after her. He needed to feel the consequences too. David's career was on the rise, a polished, ambitious executive who thrived on appearances. That facade was his weakness. I packaged every piece of evidence, every kiss, every text, every photo, and sent it anonymously to his CEO, his wife, his parents, and his church. I left no one out. Within days, David's carefully constructed life began to crumble. His world collapsed in an instant. He lost his job, his wife filed for divorce, and his once untouchable reputation lay in ruins. Overnight, he became an outcast, avoided by colleagues, ignored by neighbors, his carefully built image reduced to rubble. He stood exposed, stripped of the armor he had worn for so long. Clara didn't escape unscathed either. Word of David's disgrace spread quickly through her workplace. Hallways buzzed with whispers when she passed. People avoided her eyes. Admiration turned to pity, and pity to ridicule. She became a walking warning, the example others used in hushed conversations about mistakes not to make. When I confronted her, I wasn't shouting or raging. I was calm, cold, and deliberate. Presented with the proof, she broke down, confessed, and begged for forgiveness. She promised she would change. But some things, once broken, can't be fixed. The trust between us had been destroyed beyond repair. I filed for divorce, and a few months later, the legal ties that bound us were gone. My revenge had never been about cruelty for its own sake. It was about taking back control, rebalancing the scales, and making sure they both understood the gravity of their choices. But even knowing that, the aftermath was heavy. I endured sleepless nights, waves of doubt, and a dull ache for the life I'd imagined. Yet through it all, a strange calm began to take root. I had faced the worst, and somehow, I had come through it stronger, with a deeper respect for truth and integrity. I sold the house, cutting the last threads tying me to that chapter of my life. I started fresh, pouring my energy into work, friendships, and rediscovering who I was when I wasn't someone's spouse. The scars remained, reminders of betrayal, But they became proof of my resilience, marks of a strength I hadn't realized I had. Months later, I saw Clara at a coffee shop. She looked tired, diminished, a faded version of the woman I once knew. Our eyes met for a heartbeat, and I caught the flicker of shame in hers. I gave a short nod, not in anger, not in pity, but simply as recognition of the past we shared. Then I walked away. There was no rage left, no sorrow, just emptiness where the fire had once been. I had moved on. I had survived. And that, in the end, was the most complete revenge I could have imagined.